Shahid.
Hello. Hello, everyone.
Hey guys. So,
Welcome to the 10th webinar, I suppose.
and very special occasion. You can actually see that we are both in the same location.
That's very good. Okay. But yeah, we are like for I guess, in the rare moment, seeing that this is like the 10th webinar, like we kind of want to make it a bit extra special. So we kind of decided to like have it in a external location, decided to host it in an external location. Yeah. So and what's more, like COVID is kind of uh, like I guess it's safe to kind of meet up, but kind of precaution. Me and Leanne are kind of slightly apart here.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, this is the 10th webinar.
Webinar.
Yeah, 10th webinar.
It's been a long journey. Let me switch my slides. What?
Yeah.
Can you
So
believe it? 10
yeah,
times. We've done this 10 times since April.
10 times, and what's more is like every webinar is like 2 weeks apart. So essentially, it's 20 weeks of content.
Yes.
Kind of surprising that we lasted this long, but yeah, it's nice to see how kind of this series of webinar kind of go along, kind of covering a whole bunch of content from ML, serverless infrastructure, a bit of Kubernetes and everything. So here's to us like hoping for more content, and partly to celebrate this whole like thing being hitting 10 webinar. We got ourselves some cake. So yeah.
Cake.
Okay, I guess now we can consider ourselves food YouTubers.
What flavor is this?
Yeah, this is apparently salted caramel. I got it from
wow.
some shop like nearby.
That's nice.
I'm not sure whether we're allowed to see the location. Where exactly is here? Yeah, but yeah, the cake is partly to celebrate 10th webinar, but also one more other thing to celebrate as well is the fact that we hit 100 subscribers finally. Yeah, we've been stuck at 97 subscribers for quite a while, but then finally we hit 100.
Yes.
So before we proceed on, like maybe let's go back one slide. Let's kind of like have like take a step back and like think about like what's our favorite moment for the past 10 webinars. Like, what's your favorite moment?
So when I was writing this, I was thinking to myself, and I was looking at the different videos as well. But I feel that I think if I reflect backwards, my favorite moment, it's more along the lines of the preparation process. I think in some ways it made me become a better developer, maybe in that sense that I usually don't follow that closely to all those news. I of course would go to some of these meetups or try and like find out this news. But doing part of this actually made me like I've now bookmarked like the release notes page. I just gone through it a bit more religiously, at least once every 2 weeks. And I think not only doing that, being part of this process, listening to the other speakers, and to you as well, the news that you guys share. I think for me, this was like, I'm a little bit greedy, but I'm going to say this whole process was my favorite moment, being able to learn more while doing this webinar as well, while helping to also let people know what's new within GCP.
Nice.
Yeah. What's
Yeah.
yours?
Yeah, I mean, this whole YouTube thing kind of started partly because we didn't know what to do. At least on the digital side, like
COVID-19 happened, yeah.
happened, yes. And then after that, essentially no more meetups. So what do you do when there's no meetups? At the beginning, like I think no meetup group was doing any activity. Like everybody was kind of confused. No one knew what's next. We were a bit of push from some of the Google contacts that we know. We kind of started this whole YouTube thing. Actually, it just started because we're just kind of curious. Like, okay, maybe it's a good time to actually start a YouTube channel. Try to market ourselves a little bit. So with that, we kind of experimented a bit, and then when our first video came out, that was pretty. I don't know. I feel it's like a slight accomplishment.
Yes.
Yeah, but yeah, and then like this whole journey has been like pretty. It's a pretty nice one, a pretty interesting one, and I'm kind of like looking forward to like what's going to go on in the future.
100,
Yeah.
100 webinar.
100
5 years from now.
webinar,
So
yeah.
this is, we do it once every fortnight, and we started in April, right? So
Correct.
now we're in September. That's around 5 months. Yeah, actually twice every, what's that? 2 times a month. So that's 5 months. Wow, 100 will be another.
Yeah, it's going to be
It's a lot more months, man.
yeah, a really, 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 really long time.
Yeah, 45 more months. So that's another 4 years from now.
And there's a lot of content to cover.
It's a lot of content. Maybe 4 years from now, we'll look back into this and hey, you'll be like 100 pictures of this. That'll be interesting.
We can't fit 100 pictures. Like, I don't
Okay.
yeah, I don't think we even have the, like, it's going to be tiring to put 100 pictures. So, yeah, we're going to put like, 50 of them the same picture. No one will notice. That's beside the point.
100, yeah. Hopefully
Yeah.
we'll get there. Maybe we'll get there one day, maybe not. But I think the important part is about the now, getting the important information out for whoever, like for the audience, you guys that are watching our webinar religiously as well.
Yes.
So 100 subscribers. Actually, just now when you mentioned, yeah, we've been stuck on 97 for some time. Actually, I'm wondering who's the 3 other like subscribers who I think it was like a 2 week period, and then we had another 3 more subscribers who came in, right?
Yes. So those 2 3 subscribers, like whoever you are, thank you. You deserve a cake, but since we don't know who you are,
Yeah. And
there's
also
no
for,
cake for you guys.
for the other 97, yeah, thanks for being with us for like this whole while. I know there was at the start we had like a lot of people who were watching as well, and I know like after we do all this recording, there's also been people who watching these videos and also talking to us about it. So I mean, it's thanks to you guys that we are here today doing this. Yeah, hopefully we can go for another 10 more, 20 more, 30 more, 90 more.
Yeah.
Who knows?
Yeah, who knows?
So yeah, just to throw in, well, we have a physical location, but of course we need to have a space to do this. And some of you might be able to see over here, actually, oh yeah, you can see like posters over here. So we're at this place called Harbor. It's a construction-based startup in Singapore. And we're gonna have a message from the one of the managers over here later on as well. Yeah, so so stay tuned to that later on in regards to this. So let's move on to part of our topics. So this is the recap for week 6 and week 7. So as you all know, we are in the midst of this 9-week journey with Cloud Next, and since we do every fortnight, we can cover content for every 2 weeks. And in these few weeks, yeah, we have data management and databases and application modernization. So of course, because this is week 7, we'll try and cover more on week 7's content as we can. And yeah, you can see over here, I'm not sure if this is like a trend, but basically every single, what do you call it? Like, okay, week 1, discounting week 1, the even week itself, right, always has less videos than the odd number week. 357 has been like a spike of, like, I remember infrastructure was like 60 videos or 55 videos, and data analytics was also around that size. And it's also very interesting. Yeah, I guess they kind of are planning it in like a high-low pattern. One week they'll do some topic that is very popular, and then another week they will sort of what do you call it? Like slow down a little bit, I guess.
To let people take a breather.
Yeah. But yeah, so this is the recap. Like we have 21 videos in week 6 and 57 videos, which are the sessions essentially in week 7. So it's a lot. But the good thing is, I think we also mentioning about the cheat sheet here. So the idea is they tell you, what you can do in one whole week from Monday to Friday in regards to each week for Cloud Next. And I think one of the important things is to mention that in the sessions itself, you don't necessarily have to watch everything. Look for the topics that you're interested in. There's also beginner level, intermediate, and advanced. So look for the level that you are most interested in. Like most likely for beginners, if you have already, let's say you've already gotten some certifications, you don't really need to go through the entire process again. So maybe you can just go to the intermediate or the advanced topics. Learn about the new stuff that's coming out. Those are probably the more interesting stuff that you can look at. Okay, so let's start with Human RSS. This is considered, is this the 9th time we're doing it or the 10th time? The first time I remember we didn't call it.
We didn't call it Human RSS.
Yeah, it wasn't Human RSS yet.
The first one was mostly to cover another campaign that we were doing, which is
Modular GCP.
Modular GCP.
Yes.
But Modular GCP is like not here around. So I guess we did this human RSS like 9 times.
Yes.
Yeah. So this is kind of one of the more heavier human RSS sessions. I mean, even like essentially all the human RSS that cover the cloud nets are the more heavier sessions, right? Because they have more content to be covered. But yeah, let's get started.
Yep. Okay, so as always, starting out with the shiny new stuff. So a little bit about database systems. I think with week 6 details. This was something actually I saw in the release notes. I thought it was really interesting. For those who are following on the MySQL releases, right? We actually have I think the main versions are like MySQL 5.6, 5.7, and there's MySQL 8.0. And in the case with Cloud SQL today, they just announced on August 25 that they are going GA with Cloud SQL for MySQL 8.0. So I think that's a really big thing, especially if you use both MySQL and Postgres. Right? You'll know that like all these versions, right, are not just arbitrary versions. As application developers or even in DevOps, you want to encourage your users to use the later version if it's available, because they usually have like some form of long-term support, right? The LTS. To indicate like this between this date and this date, you will definitely get bug fixes, or if there's any breaking changes, right? Not breaking changes, but rather if there's any issues, they'll be able to support usage of this tool in this period. And Google itself also have their own support strategy. And for I think in the case of MySQL, which is by Oracle, they also have their own like sort of support strategy, the LTS strategy for long term or extended support. That's what I call it. So I would say, yeah, it's a good news. It's also you might not necessarily need to move your workloads immediately, but if you have new services, it would be good to start exploring whether you can actually use MySQL 8. I think one other thing that comes with later versions is more features. Optimize security, definitely.
Security. Yeah.
Okay, so this is a little bit off track, but like with PG-13. So PG-13 is not out yet, but I just saw this email talking about PG-13. And I think they were trying to go for like a very funny article name, which is something like why Postgres 13 is a lucky release. Because 13
unlucky. Unlucky number.
But it's that version itself, they were talking about, I think one of the advantages of moving up to version 13 was the what was that called? The B trees itself. Those the storage space required is actually a lot smaller. And so not only you save on that disk space required, it's also faster for you to compute because now you have lesser things to go through. And I think there's also some other like optimization on duplicate values. So you can see that with every new version, usually it's better features, faster, better security. So definitely go use the latest version. I think just to maybe emphasize that a little bit, you can see over here that I've just put two pictures here. The top left is referring to Cloud SQL, the support for MySQL, and the lower right is for MySQL versions supported by Oracle. So you can see over here that the extended support for 8.0 ends at April 2026. So if you adopt it now, you have like a 6-year period. If you go for 5.7, for example, you only have a 2-year period left. And if you're going for 5.6, right, that's going to finish like within a few months from now. So you shouldn't really use 5.6. Best is go for 8.0. Cloud SQL has a slightly different strategy. You can see over here, they say that each major version is supported for a minimum of 3 years. Major version refers to, over here you can see, 5.6, 5.7, the major value itself. I think 8.0, the 8 itself is considered as the major. But their minor, I think their major minor is also a bit odd. Like, I think you can search up on their documentation. I believe the minor they refer to as the patch for most of us. If you use Semver, right, 5.6 point, let's say 1.3, right, most of us will see 1.3 as the patch. But I believe in their documentation, they say that minor itself is 1.3. Like, that's considered as the minor version. Because for them, well, I guess it's kind of true because Oracle also releases in this type of iterations 5.0, 5.1. So it's kind of like the major version. But yeah, like I said, 8.0, go use it. Don't, like, I know 5.7 is default, but since it's GA, go use 8.0. Use the new features. Definitely there's some new features from there. What other stuff? BigQuery scheduled queries. Okay, this has been there for some time. This is not a new thing. This is just, in fact, okay, going from beta, you could already use service accounts to do your scheduled queries. But as with any companies, usually you would have like some form of like maybe let's say some red tape in the case of you can't use tools until they are considered like out of beta phase. So I think this would be really interesting for companies who need to use this for their data analytics. And you need to, let's say, run a workload every morning or every week on a Monday at 8 a.m. This could be really interesting because now you can start using this. In fact, this is released just a few days ago, August 24th. You can use a service account together with your scheduled queries. Yeah. Of course, it's been there for some time, but yeah, it's just that now it's GA. Yeah. Okay. And this is a little bit of a deja vu. Like, I think we talked about this either last webinar or 2 webinars ago.
2 webinars ago.
2 webinars ago? Yeah.
Yeah, if something, it sounds like something to do with infrastructure here. So
Yes.
something, yeah.
Yes, correct.
So,
Yeah.
so definitely it should be 2 webinars ago.
So 2 webinars ago, we talked about proxyless gRPC applications. So if you are familiar with using GCP's load balancers, not the external one, the internal ones, you know about Traffic Director, which is the managed Istio version in GCP. And if you use Istio before, you know that you need that control plane, you need a data plane. But this proxyless gRPC ensures you that you don't even care about the data plane, or not that you don't even care, but you don't need to have the extra sidecar sitting there or putting it together with infrastructure when you have to deploy it.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I mean, like what's this whole thing, right? So it's usually how the people deploy service meshes like that. People will deploy their app together with the sidecar. The sidecar will be the one that they'll be listening out for things from the control plane, control plane, right?
Yeah.
So from the control plane, you issue your new routes or how you want to connect, and then that's how the whole thing is controlled. But then now with this popular gRPC, I guess some resource are kind of saved here. So I guess like this is kind of a resource saving for whoever that uses this feature.
So here, yeah, this is essentially them reporting more advanced traffic management features together with this topic that we covered a few weeks ago. So if you're interested, you should definitely look into this. I don't think there's a lot of gRPC applications out there. I think most people use HTTP-based transport layer for their applications. But this is kind of, I don't want to say it's the future, okay? It's hard to say that, but it is a lot faster, like in different papers where they showed it, in terms of as compared to doing like HTTP, communication between your services.
Yeah, I mean, like essentially, this gRPC essentially just takes your network packets and sends it over the network in binary. So that's definitely a saving as compared to like sending a JSON blobs across the network. That's definitely going to be like way bigger, right?
Yeah.
So
anyway, yeah, this is how it looks like. Yeah. So yeah, you have your control plane, you have your data plane. This is like regular Kubernetes cluster. Of course, in the case of GKE itself, sorry, not GKE, but GCP itself, your traffic director would essentially be this control plane over here. And essentially, yeah, with the gRPC proxyless configuration, yeah, essentially you'll be looking at not having that sidecar acting as a proxy. You just deploy the service with your gRPC application. So gRPC as your transport layer and with your service logic there.
yeah, and in case like people who are listening and kind of wondering like, okay, so if this is the case, like how is traffic load balance? Yeah, so there's that internal thing, the gRPC on the service itself, like let's say on service A, that actually does some sort of client load balancing instead of relying on another component to do the load balancing for you. So it's kind of an advanced feature, and it goes against many people's belief, where a lot of people believe that load balancing should be on a separate component,
Yes,
because it is quite an intensive process to do. But then, I mean, with this whole thing, gRPC connectivity thing, all combined together into a service, I guess there's less impact if the load balancer goes down, because if we have one centralized load balancer, if that ever goes down, things will fail quite drastically. The blast radius is way bigger. But if you have this like client-side load balancing, I guess like if that service ever has any problems, yeah, only that like the blast radius for the whole service is kind of way smaller, right? So less things gets burned down.
True.
I guess you can say that. Yeah. And now proceed on to like this whole the next whole bunch of slides are going to be definitely going to be like Cloud Run, which is kind of one of my favorite products. I guess it's Wayne is also
Yeah, I do love it as well.
yeah. So same. So Cloud Run has a whole bunch of new features. Partly because yeah, it's been 1 year since they are released, so a lot of people have been like giving them feedback on how to improve it. And one of the things that they kind of wanted things to be improved on is how do you do your asynchronous workloads. So previously, how people do it is pumping stuff into pumping messages into PubSub, and then that gets picked up by Cloud Run. But then seeing this model, right, then people compare it to like Cloud Function and say, hey, look, Google Cloud Functions is able to get triggered on like storage, like a storage event happening. So like can't Cloud Run also have that same thing? And then this kind of like started a whole bunch of combinations where what if there can be a way to have a more generalized model or generalized message where all these events can be pumped to the worker side as well as the queue side. So I guess this whole thing comes up with this events cloud events thing, which is kind of a spec which now I guess Cloud Run kind of follow. And then when you issue a cloud event, then you can trigger a cloud run workload. So yeah, but as what is mentioned here is not yet out. I guess you can like kind of look forward to it coming in the future. Yeah,
Standardization is always good. Like,
yeah, standardization is always good. So that means I guess like other cloud providers, once they start supporting these cloud event spec as well, who knows? Maybe you can like trigger something from like other alternative clouds. I mean, you can't really say the name here, right? But yeah, so your other cloud providers can trigger like these cloud events. Maybe somehow or other it gets like streamed into some kind of central queue system. Who knows that it's supposed to where, and then that gets triggered on the different systems here. So in this case, Cloud Run. Yeah.
I think this is really very good. It's like we talked a bit before to this webinar and like how we felt that it's the cloud itself is moving, or at least there's some direction, some push towards the agnostic systems, cloud systems across different providers as well. It would be really good to see this really go through, like, you know, with, okay, I don't want to say endorse, like, I mean, I'm not, well, I like endorse, it's just that it's too big for us to use, but it is part of this entire push of like having agnostic systems, whether you deploy it in GCP, whether you deploy it in another cloud provider, it should all work as similar ways. So you should have an interface that you can just make it work in similar ways because you're using mostly managed tools here anyway.
Yeah, so like it's kind of pain like to have people to kind of restructure applications to go to different cloud providers, maybe because a feature got depreciated on a cloud provider and another cloud provider kind of provides it. So it's kind of a pain to like tell the developer like, hey, I know we are on this certain cloud and we need to move to another cloud. We need to re-architect it, and that's kind of a pain.
Yes.
And all these migration things, I think all these efforts are kind of legendary in scale of sorts.
Yeah.
Like a lot of people rant about how
I move from this to this.
Yeah, that refactoring process is not pleasant.
I have memories of those. It's painful. Yeah, I will agree with that.
Yeah.
But for mine, it's more of the trigger. The trigger is painful. The trigger where we had to move, where things started breaking left and right, it was just painful all the place. So it was a necessity-driven move for us. But that said, yeah, the process itself is also painful. Like it feels for me or for my company when we did it, it felt like somewhat like a lot of redundancies because a lot of these things should be similar, but having to translate a lot of this knowledge, similar systems but different interfaces, yeah, just felt like a lot of redundancies.
Yes.
So it's good that the standardization is always good. Good for the entire industry as a whole, in fact. So cloud workflows.
Yeah, so I guess this is kind of a play on what the cloud events kind of cover. So seeing that now you can have events being triggered, so your asynchronous activation of Cloud Run instances is now covered. So I guess with that, then people look at it like, okay, so now what if we want to stitch them all together in, I guess what the word here is kind of a workflow. So like a sequence of events or sequence of parallel events that you want to happen at the same time, all triggered by this whole cloud events mechanism. So this product is new. I haven't exactly tried it, but it does kind of resemble a bit of this Airflow thing that we mentioned in the previous webinar. So I guess it's kind of Google's take on Airflow with Google mechanisms behind it. So Airflow is an open source project, and it kind of manage workflow. Like most people actually use Airflow to manage piping data across from one source to another while doing all your transformations. So that's kind of Airflow. But then if think that you have all these cloud run and cloud events and everything, maybe if all these systems all stitched together, and then you have some kind of like spec, maybe YAML here, that kind of says like what is to be run in parallel and what is to be run in series. Then you essentially have some sort of like workflow kind of engine. So I guess
That's the solution for that.
Yeah. But yeah, this thing is essentially new. The new is a new thing. So I'm not sure how it goes. So like I guess like maybe in the future if we ever like both of us ever like try it out, maybe we'll talk about it in a future webinar.
Definitely.
And
Cloud Run.
yeah, Cloud Run. And you want to talk about like
I haven't seen the whole thing, but I know about one of the other recent changes of them allowing you to bump up a workload to 4 GB for RAM.
yeah.
So the last biggest one was 2 GB.
2 GB was the
Now it
max.
bumped up to 4.
Yeah.
I wasn't really aware about this, but it looks like request timeout now. This is what
1
60.
hour.
1 hour.
One
Wow,
hour.
that's interesting.
Again, to this is to allow like more
Developers.
heavier workloads. Yeah, maybe if you are doing like something like video processing, that's not going to take a while to finish. Or maybe machine learning.
Somewhat related to this. Yeah.
Yeah. So I guess like this kind of like everything kind of works all these features all kind of work together. So having this 1 hour request essentially kind of allows the workflow to really work properly. I guess the previous timeout was like 5 minutes. So if you actually if you have some sort of cloud run process where you need to move data from maybe a bucket to another bucket, maybe that takes like 30 minutes. Then if your cloud run instances can only run maximum of like 5 to 10 minutes, how that's going to work? Or I think it was 15 minutes. Yeah, the numbers could be jumbled up here, but yeah, it's not long previously.
It was shorter.
Yeah, it was way shorter. So now we were 1 hour timeout. I
that's
guess
long.
you open up more possibilities of what can be run into cloud run. Yeah, it's kind of a mouthful to say, but yeah. So yeah, I mean, it's kind of interesting to see what people are gonna do with this 1 hour timeout. I guess in more machine learning workload. I'm not sure whether it makes sense to do training in this 1 hour. Maybe is it possible to train a model in 1 hour? I'm not sure.
I don't think that will be enough. Yeah.
Yeah, but I guess like maybe for smaller models, I guess you can try and stuff it in. Or yeah, like more workloads can be or more variety of workloads can be run here.
It definitely does open more doors to trying out some different stuff. I think in the past where you don't have this option, likely it should be something along the lines of like you have some subtopics. I'm guessing there'll be interface to cloud functions, but cloud functions also have a timeout, right?
Yes, the timer also is not that long.
Okay. So I guess this could be a very good what do you call it? Complement to that.
Yeah.
For I think maybe current processors doesn't have that option yet. Maybe you will spin up your own VMs. You subscribe to that topic, you receive it, and then maybe it's your own Kubernetes cluster where you have your own consumer running. But this is good. Yeah, this means that you have a managed option for doing this now.
Yes, I think the last time I did saw something on Stack Overflow where because of the short timeout, what people did was they ran the thing 15 minutes, and then at the end, like when it's about close to the 10-minute or 12-minute mark, they will issue another event that pops up and then to continue the activity. So it's like a cloud run that pops up, which then calls itself. Yeah, but I don't know. Like it feels it feels like a hack around a limitation of the product. So yeah.
This is good, yeah. Especially now, I guess maybe now workflows. I mean, it's still good practice to try and break down your workloads to as many like smaller jobs as possible, and you try and complete them in parallel so that you can scale up much more easily. But yeah, it does help with jobs that you cannot do. Then it will definitely open up the doors for all of this. Oh, this is really cool. Minimum instance for Cloud Run. Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, so I guess it comes down to the complaint of people saying, my instance have cold start problem. So for those who are kind of unfamiliar with it, it takes time for a container to start. Like
Yes.
it's not magical
instantaneous,
here.
yeah.
It's not magical here. It's not like okay, I want a Cloud Run instance to run. Then no, it doesn't work that way. A container still takes time to run, and if your container happens to be a bigger container, then all the time it takes for the container to be loaded up into the VMs that Google uses to run this Cloud Run service, that takes time. Yeah. So I guess for those more latency sensitive workloads, I guess this is kind of a more useful feature. And the more interesting thing, not about the minimum instance being minimum instance wise, yeah, that kind of solves the cold start issue. But the more interesting point is the last point in this picture, which is um, although the instance may be running, and if it's not doing anything, like essentially it's not consuming any heavy amount of resources, essentially it's cheaper than your usual pricing. So I guess that's a nice touch. Like
That
okay,
definitely
yeah,
is,
that's a
yeah.
nice touch on this whole thing. It's a problem caused by the solution, which then solved by pricing. But yeah, it's a weird world.
I think it's definitely good for Google to have given this option, but not. I think in the case if it's not utilized, even though yeah your pod is supposed to be, sorry, not your pod, your Cloud Run, your instance itself is supposed to allocate all these resources, but if it's not using, yeah, actually it's a good thing for them to not charge for that. It's a nice touch. Yeah, actually, I would agree with that.
It's not
I don't know what's
not
the right
charged,
term.
it's just cheaper.
Cheaper. Sorry,
Yeah,
yeah.
cheaper.
Correct myself. It's cheaper. As in, they could have went with the option to do that, but they didn't.
They didn't.
Yeah. In fact, I think if they did charge, probably people won't question it as well because it is reasonable.
Yeah, it is
And
reasonable.
then even App Engine, yeah, they do charge for it. It doesn't matter. Okay, I guess because the model is very different.
Yeah.
But for App Engine, yeah, I mean, you have one minimum instance, then you pay for it.
Yeah, but App Engine is because it's running a VM.
VM, yes, yeah.
So that's why
Or
the
sandbox
more-
for standard, yeah.
yeah. So the pricing is a bit
It has to be that.
It
Yeah,
has
because
to be
you
that.
are using that. That is reserved for you only.
yes.
Yeah.
So in the container world, it's a different ballgame, I guess. And yeah, so I guess for those who haven't been keeping up with the news, I think just now we also were mentioning about gRPC. So gRPC applications have been on the rise. I mean, definitely some people see the benefits of it. People have been like started using creating apps. Started creating apps to kind of support this gRPC stuff and everything. So normally for all these like cloud function, cloud run, the default usually people go with initially the easiest to understand and conceptualize is HTTP.
Yes.
Just plain old HTTP over the wire, which is done well from the very beginning. Then I guess with that, now you have applications that with gRPC. So like people were asking like, okay, if my app is in gRPC, can I run it on Cloud Run? And they somehow made it happen. So from what I know, unary type gRPC, which is like client talk to server and immediately communication end, and server don't talk to client.
They don't respond.
Yeah, they don't respond. Client talk to server, communication end. I think that's like unary communication model or something. That is supported out of the box. Because that model is kind of similar to HTTP.
Yes.
I contact you as an external resource, and that's it. My communication ends. So that's easy to support. But if you go to the next slide, okay. I guess
maybe more in the link itself.
Oh no! I added up as with a plus. It's part of the. What is it?
The title.
Title. Yeah,
Yeah.
I wanted to say the
Okay.
title. So part of the title. So yeah, so they have this thing called server-side streaming. So let's say if you have a bunch of data you want to send over to Cloud Run, and the data is like yeah, it's a streaming model. You need to like keep streaming data over. So now they allow you to have the option where you open the this gRPC communication channel. It can keep streaming data, and the Cloud Run instance will continue being open and receiving data. After a timeout, then the Go Cloud Run instance will then eventually shut down. But yeah, so now it opens a new way of how to transmit data from your client to server. Yeah. So I guess it's kind of interesting to see how this plays out. I think some people started like working with this, especially on in the data side of things. Like you have a whole bunch of data to send. Doesn't make sense to like open the communication channel, send some data,
And then wait.
close. Yeah, it makes sense to like open the stream and like keep sending data until you're done.
Yes.
Yeah, so that's that.
And this is so client itself here doesn't necessarily also mean like from, let's say, like in a case of a regular web application, server side to the user. Internally, this also is in can facilitate internal communication as well. Correct?
If I'm not wrong.
Yeah. So I think this complements that 1 hour timeout very well, like what we mentioned earlier on, being able to open that connection and just
Keep it
continuously
long lived and then just keep sending data in. So I guess this whole every feature kind of play out with each other and like aggregate together to create that a fuller developer experience. Yes.
More wholesome,
A more
cloud
wholesome,
run, cloud
like
run,
can
yeah.
cover more of the compute application. Yeah.
And I think just now when we just went to this slide,
Yeah.
man,
Yeah.
wow,
This
cloud
is actually
run, they're pulling
everything.
out all the cards and tricks now.
We only covered like what 20% of this whole slide.
And we
But-
talked about this and this. And yeah, this is so much.
Yeah, because like some of the content we actually covered in previous one, especially the stuff about how you can now use a load balancer with Cloud Run. I think we covered that in the previous in the infrastructure webinar, where now you can load balance across Cloud Run, VM, and App Engine. So let's say you for some odd reason you have this
Use
app,
all three.
that uses all three platforms. Yeah, now you can support that. Yeah, no one's stopping you. And then on top, once you have the load balancer there, now you can add on your CDN on top of the load balancer. So now you have a full end-to-end network solution for any kind of compute product.
And it's serverless.
And serverless. So yeah.
So this is I think this is more of kind of like you have App Engine before, they have a lot of these features already. Okay, not exactly all of these features, but they support things like, for example, VPC access, VPC connector being supported by App Engine. And I think Cloud Run, because it came out last year, it was sort of beta-ish, and they didn't have a lot of support for these tools before. I think it's really good that they are closing out the dependency gap. And this is really good for someone like me because I have a lot of App Engine apps that runs in custom runtime, and starting up those applications, it takes a long time to deploy them. It takes a long time to scale them because of the VMs. You have to wait for the VMs to spin up, and being able to move a Cloud Run because of all these dependency gaps closing is really, really good. VPC access, you just need this to, this alone itself opens up the opportunity to be able to access your, for example, Cloud SQL, your database in a private network, in your own VPC. And then also, to memory store, because memory store has a VPC restriction as well. You can't just expose it publicly, from what I remember. So all of this are really good stuff going for Cloud Run. I'm really happy they're doing this for us.
Yeah, one extra thing to note. So all this while, if you have been on Google Cloud platform for all this while, if you use containers, you'll be familiar with this thing called container registry. There's this new thing that kind of came out called artifact registry.
Oh.
So container registry essentially is a project based, like you just dump your containers in there.
Yes.
And that's it. Like you have less control. Like there's no other thing that you can control. But with artifact registry, let's say if you want to secure it with a specific key or you want to make it public or whatever, now you can have different artifact registry. So you can have multiple like kind of container registries that do different things. So maybe you have a public container registry, or you can have a container registry that's only open for this specific client. So it's to I guess it's a very enterprisey kind of feature. Like no one, if no one, if you don't have that kind of use case, you probably won't use it. But yeah, I'm not sure what will happen to container registry. I mean, right now it's still around. I guess eventually, like saying the artifact registry is just a more flexible container registry. I'm not sure. Like maybe eventually we'll have to move over. But yeah, that's another thing that kind of came out this year as well. I'm not sure like when it was announced, but yeah, it started coming up in
Somewhere this year, yeah.
yeah. So yeah,
Ooh, so yeah, that's a lot of stuff actually, but I think that was really exciting. A lot of things about Cloud Run, in fact. Again, very excited to see all of this coming together, making Cloud Run a much more wholesome environment for building very awesome applications.
Yeah,
Very excited to see what people have built.
I just want to say that we only cover like for this week's, yeah, it's probably about 30-40% of the content. These are the content like Cloud Run, the actually things that we can actually use. Because the majority of the content is actually enthos, which
Yeah, I think that's
it's for the big boys. You can't exactly talk about it since yeah, we don't have the chance to play with it.
Good to know, lah. Good to know, I guess. Like maybe we'll get a touchy one. Okay, you have to be a part of a big company, I guess. Yeah. To
Yeah.
Use that.
Correct.
Okay, so going to the next section of tips and tricks. So this is one of the highlighted sessions that we saw within the cloud sessions for week 7, and I thought this was really interesting when I clicked into it because usually, like as you mentioned, because a lot of things are about NTOS, and NTOS is about cost. It's about big cost. Of course, you're trying to save a bit of money with using Google Cloud with big workloads, but what about the small boys? Like small boys. That sounds wrong, but as in for us, I think the smaller players who we're not looking at using 196 CPU VMs at once. We're looking at a smaller Kubernetes cluster for serving maybe a more localized crowd. And let's say if our startups starting from a smaller piece of a smaller environment, lesser resources, it's good to start planning your cost early. Of course, you don't want to forsake performance, but you should do it in a way such that you are able to optimize your costs along with the performance you get from Google Cloud. And I think this was really interesting. They go a little bit like don't see it as like the silver bullet that tells you how to solve this whole problem. I think there's an ongoing process where you have to mix up the different concepts. For example, what you learn from here, using recommendations in your GCP console to know where you can save money on, like downsizing your VMs and stuff like that. But the thing is, this session really did cover quite a bit of concepts on what you can do to try and save your money, like the expenditure per month that you put on all your machines. In this case, with GKE, the Kubernetes engine managed version in GCP, for example, you can see over here they introduce a few concepts in regards to auto scaling. One of the things about Kubernetes itself, or any workloads, is that you want your workloads to scale. If there's a lot of people hitting your site, a thundering herd, you want to scale so that you can meet the demand from all of this. But the thing is, what about the other side of the picture? How much to scale? If you scale too much, you're wasting a lot of, you might be wasting money. So different concepts in GCP itself, be able to understand what's a cluster autoscaler, horizontal pod autoscaler, vertical pod autoscaler. So the other two here is a bit more advanced, vertical pod autoscaler and the node auto provisioning. But these are the 4 strategies, right? They can look into. In fact, it's not just it's wrong to say 4 strategies. You can actually use this in conjunction. Like for myself, right? What I've identified is that the regular use case would be mostly horizontal pod autoscaling and cluster autoscaler. So, for example, you enable cluster autoscaler first within your node pools for your Kubernetes cluster, where you indicate that I can have this node pool being able to add new nodes into the node pool. I'll give it a limit up to 9 nodes with 4 CPU each. And this will allow you, every time you need to scale up your pods, either manually, like let's say manually, I want to pump in more pods, the cluster itself will recognize that, I don't have enough resources. Let me get another node because it's part of the strategy over here. And if you complement that with horizontal pod autoscaler, as the demand increase for your service, your pods will automatically get added. So this complements each other very well, where add more pods, node doesn't have enough resources, add a new node. Okay. And of course, I think I'm not super familiar with this other two, but from what I understand, I think I also talked to Harizwan, who also have a bit of experience with this. And the idea is, yeah, the VPA, vertical port autoscaler, is more along the lines of actually amending the limits on your ports. It's not about adding more ports because it's vertical scaling. Of course, vertical scaling has a very weird ring to it. I think usually people don't talk too much about vertical scaling of VMs, but ports is a bit different because you want to look at the optimized resource limits or requests that you should deliver for a port, and that comes along with data. Node auto provisioning, I think that's a bit of a stretch. I think that's more highly advanced for different types of workloads. I wouldn't put it so much on a regular web application with some regular backend workloads. Maybe more with dynamic workloads.
Or maybe workloads with GPU or something. Like,
Yeah.
let's say if you want to let's say all this while you only have web application and then you suddenly need to spin up something with GPU. I'm not sure. Like essentially, like I haven't exactly played with this NAP. I'm not sure how to turn it on.
But essentially, it's like you have a few node pools, right? NAP adds another new
Another
node pool.
pool,
It's
yeah.
not adding nodes, it's not adding pods, it's adding more node pools. So it's an interesting way of scaling in a different way. And so, four different strategies covering four different perspectives of how you can scale. And you can definitely just balance using these different strategies to find the most optimized way for your type of application. I think they also cover I think there's 6 or 7 steps. Okay, 6 steps. The last one is essentially just contacting with Google. But the idea is what you can look into in order to optimize, your workloads within your machines to make sure that you are using all these machines to the maximum capability. Like for example, one of the really interesting concepts they talk about is beat packing. The idea is that let's say you have a 4 CPU machine with I don't know 30 gigs of RAM, for example, and let's say most of our workloads are more memory heavy, so you end up using 90% of your memory, but you only utilize 30% of the CPU. And because of the utilization criteria for your pods, what happens is that if you spin up the next pod, right, they actually will say, oh, maybe you need to spin up a new node. Okay, the cluster autoscaler will bring up a new node, then you'll bring the pod there. So it's kind of like waste of money because you are like underutilizing in a certain aspect. And I think they will give you like some recommendations, like try to make sure that your workloads have similar resource requirements. And then of course you can also look into things like bringing up different node pools for different types of pods. Like if you have certain memory intensive workloads, put them in a pool where the nodes are more towards the provision with higher memory requirements. Yeah, so it's very interesting strategies to look towards. In fact, I think if you are just starting out, you could definitely look into this to sort of plan it out, and then across as you use GCP, right, you can use this as strategies to sort of fine tune how you can optimize the cost of the application. Yeah. So if you're interested, yeah.
Yeah, but to be honest, like this whole talk about how to beam pack your pods into your VMs and everything, it's you can almost say like it's almost like a research topic on itself.
It's art.
Because, yeah, it's also art, but it's also kind of a science. Like it's to the point that there is actually a SIG group. Like okay, so Kubernetes, people who work on Kubernetes, they work in these like small groups that like focus on specific areas in Kubernetes. So there is a SIG group called the auto scaling group, where they do a lot of focus about how to auto scaling. Yeah, I'm not exactly sure whether that is the right secret. Okay, is one of the secrets. Yeah, I'm not sure whether it's exactly the auto scaling SIG group or is it the scaling SIG group. Yeah, it's one of these. So they focus on how to oh, sorry, it was a scheduling SIG group. Yeah, sorry. Ignore the part about scaling. So the scheduling SIG group, like they focus on how to put the right pods in the right VM, right place. So I mean, generally you can just rely on GKE to do the thing for you because they kind of know. But then let's say if you have certain requirement, like say this app is more memory intensive, and you have a VM that's more has more memory as compared to other VMs. Or yeah, in this node pool that has a sub VM that is like has more extra memory as compared to other VM. So what you can do is you can actually tag all these nodes, and then you can use they call it no, affiliation, affinity, yes, affinity.
No affinity, I think that's what
Yeah, no affinity, and then basically it's just telling the scheduler, okay, like if as much as possible, try to schedule the pods there, and then you can even have a policy where if you can't schedule it there, schedule it somewhere else because like maybe you need the thing to run no matter what.
Yes.
So yeah, this whole thing is actually a very complex. Maybe one day maybe we should have a webinar that talks about this and then go through all different kind of scenarios that could potentially happen. So one is like maybe you want to ensure that a CPU intensive workload doesn't go to a VM that is like very low in CPU. So
Yes.
maybe you put a taint on it and like okay, all the CPU intensive workload will like stay away from it. Yeah. So there is this talk about them even talking about having this thing called a descheduler, where like periodically, once in a while, it will go through the thing and it's like, oh, maybe this certain pod, it doesn't fit the nodes and things actually can be scheduled somewhere else or something. It will kick it off so that another more appropriate pod can come in. Yeah. So yeah, it's kind of a research topic on like it will take a while to get the right configurations in. Yeah, so yeah, scheduling is sick. Yeah, if anyone is interested, you can actually go to the YouTube CNCF YouTube channel and find the scheduling sick um, YouTube videos where they have their meetings and can kind of see like what they cover, like what the latest stuff that comes up with scheduling, which is yeah, a complex.
It's a
topic.
science.
It's a science.
Science
yeah,
and art.
Yeah, and art.
Okay,
Yeah.
science, yeah, because you really, if you want to solve it in the ideal sense, you definitely need to have the proper data backing the decisions, to make the entire scheduling done properly. But the art in the sense of you knowing what requirements you have, optimize it in the manual sense as well. Like by not putting your memory intensive workloads in your CPU intensive custom pools, I think that there's a start. Like because that if you if you do the initial decisions in the wrong way, you'll make it harder for the science to take over and fix it for you.
Yes.
But this was very interesting going through it. Again, it's not a silver bullet. They don't show you in the end like we managed to with this you cut down all this percent and you're safe the same thing. I think in the end it's about finding the right set of solutions. Like probably maybe you could start with let's say number 5 over here, and then CPU manager you do it somewhere in the middle, and then like so it's up to you. Decide when you want to do this. Like maybe for startups you wouldn't go with cluster autoscaler first because maybe if you're afraid that you pump up like too many pods and then you end up spending a lot more money maybe. Yeah, so it depends. Just look into it and see what are the best ways for you to optimize your costs. It's an ever-going journey. Actually, one thing they didn't mention here is the budget alerts. I think they should have mentioned that. Yeah, budget alerts is very, in my opinion, I feel it's important because I think besides having the data and the charts for you to analyze, the important part is also to know when you exceed your budgets at certain periods and when you can manually adjust as well if you have to.
Yeah. So I guess with this we go back to the Cloud Run stuff. Yeah. So
It's exciting.
but back to Cloud Run. So I mean, as a play on top of like whatever things that has been released, so now we kind of know that Cloud Run can be triggered by events, and this event can come from anywhere. So potentially, most of in the past, most of these events kind of come from PubSub. Yeah. So, but now since that you have a more like cloud event spec, right? Yeah. So this event can come from anywhere. So let's say now you can have a scenario where you can trigger Cloud Run based on cloud storage events. So let's say if you put an image on cloud storage, and we needed to run some sort of like Cloud Run workload to like process the image. Yeah, so now that is now kind of possible. So you can like have all these workflows all get triggered from events that happen on GCP. I will you imagine that in the future there will be more events that can happen. Like maybe, let's say you have something like Google Cloud Data Store. Maybe if you add a new entity there, and then that triggers the event, that will become interesting to see. I'm not sure whether it's being developed yet, but right now, cloud storage, cloud PubSub, those are definitely in there. So if you see on the slide here, um, so over here, it kind of shows like, okay, let's say if a user puts in an image into Cloud Bucket that triggers Cloud Run, and then that Cloud Run then pushes a message to PubSub, and then that triggers another Cloud Run instance. So yeah, this is kind of one approach that you can develop your workflows to process a certain thing for your company. You can design it that way. Just one thing. I mean, the benefit of this whole event-based workflow is like, okay, let's say you have 200 events coming in at the same time, and if you did it without using this event-based workflow in place, so essentially now you need to make sure that all your downstream applications is able to cope with it. So let's say 200 events, maybe it has significant load on like service A, and maybe service A needs to call service B, but if service B cannot handle it, then there's an issue, right? So let's say service A tries to call service B, but then maybe service B is overloaded. So you can't exactly process 200 events. Maybe you need to drop 100 events. So the technically, it doesn't make sense to have your pipeline like call each other. So you have it in some kind of asynchronous way where you have like maybe service A as a publisher, which just publish messages, it doesn't care. Publish message to some sort of queue system. And then you have consumers that take from that queue. So let's say if your queue number is too high, add more consumer. In this case, you don't need to, since we are using Google Cloud, we don't need to exactly think about whether our queue is able to handle that workload. But if you happen to be using like something external, like maybe if you are using like Kafka and everything, that's also another thing that you need to kind of take note of. But in the case of like Google PubSub, it's almost like infinity kind of stress. We can like stress it like mad, and it wouldn't be an issue to us. So essentially, what you can do is you can have a publisher that just throws like thousands of messages in, and then you have a consumer that like just scale. Yeah. And then if your queue is too big, yeah, add more consumers. So the two are kind of separate. This makes the whole workflow more resilient. Yeah. So higher chance of event succeeding or the workflow succeeding as compared to the previous where everything's role based. Maybe service A depends on service B. So if service A calls service B and service B happens to be overloaded, then the whole thing starts to die. Yeah, that's not going to be a pleasant experience to go through.
I like to feel like this tip is also more towards, maybe they don't talk about it, but visibility, in the sense that if you have, let's say, A calling B, right? If it fails, right, under whose logs should you look for the problem? Like, yeah. So that's a very interesting, maybe, I don't know if this is considered a problem, but if you point it to, let's say, in the case, let's say, we guarantee, okay, I don't want to guarantee, but let's say that PubSub is not the problem. So you have the publisher pushing, and then if from the consumer consume. So if let's say if something is wrong on the level of the consumer, you can see very quickly logs in the consumer. This is the problem, because publisher logs already show that it's publishing properly.
Yes.
But yeah, visibility, I feel it might help here because if there's a problem, right, you don't know A and B like who's the culprit. You have to dig in a little bit more. But having it separated does give a bit more visibility there.
I guess you can say that as well. Yep.
Woo, yes. So on the next part, community content. So today the community content is a bit short. I think mostly we're covering more on Cloud Next content. So not so much on the end of community, but I think this is something really interesting I saw in Reddit, and I just wanted to share it because this is a little bit of a pain point of using G Suite. So like for companies, right, who use GCP, you have to maintain your Google groups in G Suite. And then maybe you might be using Google accounts where your company accounts are in Gmail. Yeah. And then so the idea is that, right, what if you're just using GCP? What if you're just using GCP, right? Essentially, right, you don't really need that G Suite, like that license to do that. Maybe you want to manage user groups, create Google accounts, all within your Google Cloud Console. So this is something very interesting they can explore itself. In fact, over here you can see that. Okay, so over here the comparison, they're actually comparing between Cloud Identity and IAM. Like, what's exactly the difference? And essentially, the answer over here is saying, no, Cloud Identity is to manage groups, create users. IAM is to manage the permissions. And essentially, yeah, this is overlap with the G Suite itself in managing and creating user groups, but taking away all those additional stuff that you really don't need in G Suite. Uh, so very much recommended. Like, go and use Cloud Identity if you are just using GCP, for example. So yeah, one last part on our learning corner. So okay, if it's not obvious at this point, like we've been just like talking about this left and right about Cloud Next, and yeah, essentially this is week 7. We have 2 more weeks left. So very excited to see in 2 more weeks. I think the next webinar, webinar 11, will be the last one covering the content. But that said, it has been very exciting to see all the content in all these weeks. And as with everything, right, learning our learning corner, we need to talk about learning, like stuff that you can use to, or stuff that you can look towards in terms of learning more about GCP. And in this week 7, you can see that, okay, so this is actually not a recycled image from the previous webinar. There's actually more links over here. So we'll talk about it a little bit. In fact, we want to change up, our flow a little bit to share a few more things you can do in terms of learning about GCP. So yeah, I can go to this link over here if you're interested. So one thing I want to talk about is DevRel's recap and Q&A. So this is something that actually I've been doing for the past few weeks, but we never really talked about it. But just to highlight, if let's say you don't have enough time to go through all of the different content, maybe you just want to see what other people have covered, their common questions. Usually those are the things that would, let's say the questions itself, right, the most common questions would be about the things that came out during Cloud Next. So you can actually attend that session. In the case of Singapore, you can attend the APEC variant of the recap and the Q&A. You can see over here, this is actually tomorrow, 11 a.m. to 11:30 a.m. Okay, and if you are somewhat of a night person, you can also go for the midnight one. This is the global one, if I'm not wrong, 12 midnight to 1 a.m. Yeah, so the links are over here if you're interested in attending. And so yeah, there's actually, okay, going back a few slides, you can see over here that there's actually an extra link over here this time. There's a ebook. Wow, ebook, free book I like. But okay, I don't say but lah. I went to download this book. It's mostly about NTOS. So we've been talking about NTOS. We like NTOS. It's for the big boys. We are not big boys, so a bit hard for us, when we have to use this. But it's still very interesting to see how they have put NTOS together with GCP, and I think there's a total of 6 chapters and there's a 41-page book. I haven't gone through the whole thing, but it does go through different aspects of using NTOS within GCP. Like for example, if you're a person who's very interested in Cloud Run, we've been talking about Cloud Run a lot today. Cloud Run with NTOS will be a very interesting aspect to using NTOS, because NTOS itself, there's also that they have their own interface for controlling your service meshes, your Kubernetes clusters. But then Cloud Run on top of it, like how does it work out? So it's a very interesting topic for them to talk about. So yeah, if you're interested, you can, okay, I don't have a link here, but you can actually go to the GDG10 Learn Hub, this link over here. Click this, you need to put in some details, then they will send you a PDF link, and you can download that ebook, or they will actually call it the white paper for NTOS. And then, of course, not to forget, if you like gamification, you like collecting badges, you have trying out Quick Labs, this is another exciting opportunity for you. Week 7 is out. Go and play the different Quick Labs. Of course, it's free, because if you're a participant, the labs that you attend will be considered as free. Should be considered as free. Yeah, and once you complete it, they'll give you a badge. So, and you can show the badge to other people. You can print on LinkedIn if you want. Yeah, so the link is over here. GDG10 Cloud Hero, week 7. Oh, 229 spots remaining. That's not a lot.
That was yesterday.
That was yesterday. Oh, I hope I know at certain periods they'll increase the spots, but it's not a guarantee. So do go for it as soon, like if you're interested, as early as possible. Especially you can see over here, 6 days remaining. Give yourself more time to finish it lah. Yeah, so if you want to go for it, GDG 10 Cloud Hero and study jams. So just to highlight the study jams, like this has been occurring for every single week. And the interesting thing is that because everything is done online, everything is recorded, the sessions are recorded, even the study jams itself are recorded. So if you're interested, you can look at the previous weeks for the study jams and actually go through the content. This week's study jam is unfortunately already over. It happened this morning. But like I said, yeah, it's recorded. You can look through it again later on. So this will tie in very well. Like you can see over here, Cloud Study Jam for Associate Cloud Engineer. So if you're interested in getting certifications, this would tie in very well for you to prepare and get started with getting certifications. And very nice transition. If you want to sign up for GCP certification and Quick Labs, free 1 month Quick Labs, although this one has been there for like since May of this year. But if you have not signed up for this yet, do go for it. You can see over here, Google Cloud Training, sign up for free 1 month Quick Labs, go for a certification, get the certification, show off on LinkedIn. I don't know. It's good, but yeah, you get free swags along with it. So yeah, sign up for certification and get it today. And yeah, with that, we've come to the end of today's Human RSS. We hope you enjoy the different perspectives of that. And so to transit a little bit to our location sponsor today, we have so maybe we have to introduce him in first. I think. So some of y'all, I think most of y'all will be very familiar with our celebrity over here. His name. So would you like to introduce yourself?
Hello, I am a celebrity. How are you? Yeah, thanks for coming over.
Yeah. Thanks for this sweet spot, by the way. This is a very nice office.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah. So if it's not obvious, yeah, so Julius is from Harbour, and yeah, they're looking for people to join their awesome company.
Yes, because we have lots of money to burn. We're looking for backend engineers, front-end QA. Yeah, I guess you get the idea there. So if you are interested, if you have friends who are interested, we are hiring, we are growing rapidly. Send your resumes to that email right there. And yeah, we look forward to talk to you.
So, okay, so moving on to our next slide over here. Well, I said Julius is a celebrity, like not just because he's part of Harbour, like our location sponsor for today, but also because he's part of our sister group in GGG Singapore. So now you need to take off the mask and put another mask again.
Yeah, I feel so proud.
Yeah, they did the Google thing. That's why he now gets a cake.
Happy 10th anniversary. Or how do you webinar? Sorry, whatever. So I should talk about this, I suppose.
Yes. Yeah, we're always looking for speakers. Like this is a thing not just with GDG Singapore, also with GDG Cloud Singapore. Like for all of you out there, like whether you're watching this as a recording or watching this live right now, if you have something to share with us, please sign in there. No, not sign in. Please sign up there.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Like like even if it's your first time to talk, like we'll be more than happy to kind of help you with it. So this is not about like bringing just experts to talk about things. We are more than happy to really help you in your career, kind of get your name out there. And guess what? If you haven't had a chance to bump shoulders with folks from Google, folks from from Vicky, from Acronis, right?
Acronis.
Who actually signed up there already. Bump shoulders with GDEs, Google Developer Experts. This is the first step to bump shoulders with your paper right next to them. And then bump shoulders with them in our online event. And then once COVID is out, do it live. So that's how we do it.
Yeah, we'll eat pizzas together.
Yes. Yeah. So yeah, I was going to say, please do sign up in that link right there. We want your papers, we want your proposals. We are begging for people to speak. No, kidding. There's a majesty to it, so we're not begging.
So topics itself is, I mean, there isn't any big constraints on like, today we are doing GCP. It's not just Google Cloud. I mean, if you are a web developer using Chrome, if you've been using TensorFlow, Kotlin, you're an Android developer, I mean, yeah, share with us. Like, if you are working on something secret in a company, you can share with us, share with the community, please do.
Oh yeah, that's the best thing. Share your secrets, man. Come on.
Yes. Yep. So we look forward to seeing all of your new speakers, especially first time, best time. Please, yeah, come sign up. And yeah, we have this other thing next. What is this? DevFest. So for those who are not in the know, for all Google community groups, right? We have this event called DevFest that occurs at mostly near the end of every single year. And yeah, we have something very interesting planned over here.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Segue with that.
Yeah, in this season of the pandemic, we cannot meet in person, but we can meet online. So guess what? We are spinning up some new clusters in Malaysia. Normally what happens is, back in those days, back in those glorious days of DevFest, where you do it one day in a year. This time we're going to do it 1 month. So which means that we're throwing in GDG in Kuala Lumpur, GDG in Penang. We'll have Women Tech Makers in Kuala Lumpur. You have GDG in Singapore, GDG Cloud in Singapore, GDG Cloud in Malaysia, and then you have Flutter Singapore all coming over and having this 1 month of really exciting stuff to share with you all. So I think that's going to be super exciting. Again, we are looking for speakers, and if you want to just come and attend, please do so. We'll be more than happy to have you with us.
Very exciting. It's like an Avengers level event. 1 whole month, man. This is going to be weekend. So it's mostly weekends, right? Weekends to weekends to weekends to weekends.
Yes.
And yeah, it'll be an exciting time. We haven't done something like this before, right?
Oh yeah.
Maybe we have been doing at our own level.
Yeah, this is the first time. So it's like a Google I/O where different passionate Google developers come together in Mountain View. But hey, we have YouTube, we have Facebook. Why don't we kind of meet each other there? You have some really amazing speakers. You have Google developer experts, probably people from Google, from JetBrains to talk about Kotlin stuff. You have people from Silicon Valley sharing their insights as well. So this is something that you don't really get every day, but this is how I guess we can roll with pandemic. You kind of come up with some new stuff, and hope you enjoy this event with us.
So yeah, thanks for the introduction. Well, not introduction. I guess this is a conclusion of today's event. Thanks for the nice location as well. And for you folks out there, again, whether you're watching live or watching this as a recording, October is coming. Look out for our meetup groups, our Facebook pages. We'll be posting more details of all these events. Especially, be it whether in Singapore, Malaysia, or even in Indonesia, Philippines. Definitely we welcome all of you guys to join in our festivities for DevFest, entirety of October. Yeah. So, okay, I think on that note, it has been a very exciting 10 webinar journey. Again, 5 months. I'm not sure how we did it, but it's 5 months already. 100 webinar, 4.5 years. I'll see you guys later. maybe. Or 4 years, 4 years. 45 months, right?
Correct. So if you ever reach that stage, a bigger treat, I guess.
A bigger treat, yeah.
Maybe Wagyu beef or something.
Oh.
Let's see how the wallet do.
Yeah. But it's been really awesome. I think we learned a lot, we laughed a lot, we've invited very great speakers who talked about different topics. We hope all of you guys enjoyed the different content that we've been sharing with you guys. This time the 10th time, and it's going to be ongoing for 11, 12. We already have the 11 one on our YouTube channel already, the placeholder. So yeah, I think hope to see you guys again, and especially after this COVID-19 period, hopefully we'll be still doing more of this. I mean, in person, especially like we said, having pizzas in those events as well. Oh, I miss having pizzas, man. having those events when they have like free shirts and pizzas and all that. Yeah.
True.
Okay, so you have to end off. Usually we have all the social links. Okay, as in make sure you go to our Facebook group. Usually we share a lot of our events, like especially with DevFest as well. We'll definitely share all the details of this event over there. So make sure you follow our Facebook page. We also have our meetup page as well for example, like if you sign up to our group, you essentially see all the events, the new events that we post over there. And for Slack channel, if you want to find other people to talk to in regards to GCP related stuff, you can also join our Slack group. And yeah, it's been a very exciting 10 webinar journey. It's great that we're able to meet here offline, I guess for first time for a webinar, which is very interesting. And it was great as well, like being able to do this for so many times. You guys want and you guys have anything else to say?
Enjoy the cake.
Oh yeah, thank you. I will. Yeah.
Nah, I finished mine.
Oh, shouldn't be eating now. Okay, I'm gonna end off with the same sentence I say every single time. I feel very embarrassed every time saying this. I think my wife is watching at home. It makes me feel very weird, but make sure you like. If you're watching from YouTube, make sure you like, share, and subscribe. And if you're on Facebook, make sure you like and share this stream. Yeah.
Yeah.
See you guys next time.
Yeah.